Hi friends, Grace here. Welcome to another presentation where I want to talk about an article that was recently published last month, December 2019, by Gwanup Diop. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And he is the Director of the General Conference, Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. And he published this article in the Adventist Review. And in this article, he is basically defending the church's stance on ecumenism and their work, which they have been doing with other churches, which he just describes as minglings. And he's basically saying it's okay. And those who disagree with this, he describes as being hateful and unchristlike, basically, in a nutshell. So that's what he was basically saying in that article. And I'll post a link below so you can read it yourself. Now, before I continue, let me make it clear that this is not a personal attack on Gwanup or anyone out there who think the way he thinks, because if I didn't know what I know now in terms of diligently studying the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, I would be of the same mindset, because it sounds good, right? What the Pope is pushing in regards to us coming together as one. We see all the wars and fightings because of different religions, having different views and so on. So what they are promoting seems good. I mean, if you're looking at it from your own mindset, it seems like a good idea. This whole climate change, make the world a better place, this come together as one. We have to be honest, it sounds good. But the Bible tells us that there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is death. Our heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. Who can know it? When they shall say peace, peace, then shall sudden destruction come upon them as a whirlwind. So we cannot go by what we think or what sounds good, but we have to put everything to the Bible and to the spirit of prophecy manifested by Ellen White as Adventists. And when you do this, you'll find that what they are promoting, though they may be ignorant or genuine, is extremely dangerous, and it can lead to many thousands to lose their souls. So this is a serious matter. Now, I'd like to read the opening of the article that Gwanup published, near the opening of the article, just to give you an idea of what he's basically saying. So he states in this passage here, first, a clarification. Interchurch and interfaith relations do not mean ecumenism in the sense of union with other churches. I beg to disagree with that statement, and I'll show you why in a moment. So he's saying that their relations with other church does not mean ecumenism in the sense of union with other churches, doctrinal alliances, obliteration of differences, or the loss of distinctive emphasis on biblical truths. A misunderstanding of this basic fact has prompted a few at the fringes of the church to accuse Adventist leaders of betraying the church's position, which they assume demands there be no interaction with other Christians at all. I think he's exaggerating that point, but I'll go into that in a moment as well. This radical rejection of mingling with others is at times expressed through violent and angry rhetoric. And I agree that's wrong. If you disagree with someone, you shouldn't allow your human passions to get in the way of it. You should do things with love. And many times we may have been guilty of that. I hold my hands up. I have done that in the past, and I've repented of that, because that's not the way you win souls. Nevertheless, it doesn't negate that what many of us are saying is true. And what the church is doing is in fact betraying the sacred trust that God gave to us in terms of how we need to be a distinct, peculiar people. Now, he states that what they are doing is not union with other churches in sense of doctrinal alliances. When I beg to disagree, what we are seeing is Adventist pastors and the Catholics coming together in joint worship ceremonies, as you can see in this picture here. You have a Catholic priest, you have a leader from a Methodist church, and you have a pastor from the Seventh-day Adventist church holding hands during an ecumenical prayer vigil. So they are coming together as one in worship. This is not discussions. You are coming together as worship. That's no different to when the Israelites were joining the Canaanites and the Amorites and the basis of tribes coming together to worship their idols. This goes way beyond just mingling and discussions. You are coming together as worship, as one. And that's what makes it so serious and dangerous. Again, in this picture here, you see Guanup here sitting with many other Roman Catholics and other Orthodox Jews, and they are sitting down, and most of them are in black, while the Pope is in white, and it's the Pope giving dialogue. So what you find with these whole ecumenical gatherings is that we as Adventists don't seem to be teaching the people the truths of the Bible in terms of keeping the commandments of God, not worshipping idols, no, but we are just sort of sitting back, and it's the Pope who is leading and organising this whole ecumenical movement. This is not what Jesus did. Yes, Jesus mingled with sinners, but it was to change them and bring them closer to him, and he was the one that was teaching them. He was the one that was leading them to the truth through love. That's the difference here. We are not leading them, but we are following them, and we are going to their churches to worship their God, which is the Son God, and saying this is in the name of love and peace and it's okay, when that is not okay. That goes against everything the St. Adventist Church was built upon. And that's why many are so upset in regards to what the church is doing today. Again, we see Guanup, again, an ecumenical ceremony, a Catholic ceremony, with the Pope. They're all together smiling like this is a great thing, not realizing that this is the Antichrist, this is a satanic power according to the Bible. All the Protestant reformers recognize that this is the man of sin, that when there are opportunities come, he would kill all those who don't agree with him. That's what the Bible is teaching us. And you are not saying anything about this, but keeping quiet, compromising. This is not what this church should be doing. This is wrong. Again, you see another Adventist pastor who's president of the Hungarian Union of St. Adventists, again participating in worship services with the Catholics. So you see, it's the Catholics that's leading us to join them. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it wrong. So here again, you see another Adventist pastor worshipping again with the other churches, holding the false way for God in honour with the Son God, singing the same hymns, participating in the same pagan rites. This is an abomination in the sight of God. There's no distinction between the two. And you want to tell us that this is okay? This is why so many are furious in regards to what the leaders are doing, because it's so wrong. It's a betrayal of the sacred trust God has given us. Again, you see left to right, Angela Fall, ordained priest of the Anglican Church, Sarah, an ordained priest for the Catholic Church of Switzerland. And you have Patrick Mida, St. Adventist pastor again. This is in Switzerland, participating in the same pagan rites. This explains why in the churches today you would never hear the three angels' messages preached in this fullness, warning against receiving the mark of the beast, identifying who Babylon is, which is the Roman Catholic Church and its daughters. Very rare. I can't remember the last time I heard a message like this within an Adventist conference church. Why? Because they have compromised. This is what makes it scary. This is what makes it dangerous. Compromise. Mrs. White tells us, it was by associating with idolaters and joining in their festivals that the Hebrews were led to transgress God's law and bring his judgment upon the nation. So now it is by leading the followers of Christ to associate with the ungodly and unite in their amusements that Satan is most successful in alluring them into sin. Isn't it what we are seeing today? They are participating in the same worship services, singing the same songs. This is what led the judgments of God to fall. The Lord is upset in regards to what they are doing here. This is a betrayal of sacred trust. Satan is most successful in alluring them into sin. Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean. God requires of his people now as great a distinction from the world in custom, habits, and principles as he required of Israel anciently. If they faithfully follow the teachings of his word, this distinction will exist. It cannot be otherwise. The followers of Christ are to separate themselves from sinners, choosing their society only when there is an opportunity to do them good. So we should only mingle with them if they have an opportunity to do good to them. And from these mingling, as Guadalupe describes, I don't see us doing good to them in terms of teaching them to obey the commandments of God and telling them to turn away from idolatry, because the Catholic system is paganism, it's idol worship. We see their statues to their gods. It's steeped in sun worship. The basest acts that goes on behind the scenes regarding the Catholic priests. And you want to tell us it's okay for us to join in their worship services and think God is okay with this, when it is a betrayal of sacred trust? This is not right. This is wrong. Again, we see many of the leaders now teaching Adventist kids to embrace the papal church. You see Adventist scouts visiting the Roman Catholic Church, participating in worship. Now, them sadly being led to believe that they are okay, that what the Catholic Church is doing is okay. You're not protesting. To be a Protestant is to protest the Catholic Church. You're joining in it. Can you imagine if any of the pioneers were ever to do such a thing? They will be turning in their graves if they could see what's going on now. This is so wrong. We are told, the time was when Protestants placed a high value upon the liberty of conscience, which they had been so dearly purchased. They taught their children to abhor popery and held that to seek harmony with Rome would be disloyalty to God. But now, widely different are the sentiments now expressed. So true, how different. Teaching the kids now to love popery. If you're not protesting, if you're not telling them what they are doing is wrong, and you are joining in their worship services, and if it's okay, you are in agreement with them. You are joining yourselves to idols. You are joining yourselves to Babylon. Friends, we have a fearful message to give. It's not a pretty message. It's a message which will cause you to possibly lose your life, to lose your home, to lose your families. Come out of her, my people. The Bible describes her as abominations, full of iniquity, unclean, fornication. The greatest enemy against God, trying to take the place of God, claiming himself to be righteous as he is above others when there is none righteous, no, not one. But yet we are keeping quiet and thinking, oh, this is okay. This is a disgrace. Here we have Guadalupe singing the traditional Roman Catholic songs in Latin with the ecumenical choir. We have them now coming together as one. For the past 60 years, they've been coming together as one to promote unity. So what have you been discussing within those 60 years? I would like to see the transcript that goes on. I doubt they won't give it to us. But what are you talking about? Tell us, what are you telling them? Are you telling them about the mark of the beast? That they are Babylon, that what they are doing is not Christian, that the dead know nothing, that Sabbath is the true day of worship, that Sunday is pagan in regards to worshipping on Sunday, saying that's the day that God blessed when he never did such a thing? Are you telling them this thing? No, you're not, because if you were to do that, they would shut you out and cast you out. But now we are becoming loved by the world. Why? Because we are conforming to their standards. We are not changing them, but they are changing us. Dress like them, act like them, eat like them. It's a disgrace. We are no longer a peculiar people. Church services today are dead, literally dead. The same dead messages which cannot awaken the people in regards to the times that we are in. The church is sleeping, and it's frightening, very frightening. And what we are seeing today, there's nothing new under the sun. Satan is so clever. What we are seeing is a repeat of history. Many of us know the story of Balaam and Balak. What happened was, Balak, the king of Moab, he wanted to get rid of the Israelites. He was fearful of them. So he told Balaam, who was once a prophet of God, whom the Israelites trusted, to curse Israel. But he couldn't curse Israel. He pronounced a blessing on them. Why? Because Israel was faithful to God, so no harm could come upon them. And Balaam realized this. So he told the Moab king, what? Get the women in them. We have to get them to compromise. And when we can get them to compromise and to sin against God, then God will remove his blessings and the judgments will come upon them. And he was right. What happened? The Moabite women came into the camp slowly, deceitfully, Then before you know it, all the leaders were caught up in these fornications with this unholy women, which caused a plague to come across Israel where thousands were lost. It's the same thing we are seeing today in the spiritual sense. That which was then is literal. Now it's the spiritual. And what is Satan doing? He's bringing the women in the churches. Women symbolizing the other churches. He's bringing the women, the churches, to mingle, as he describes it, with the Adventists. So there's no difference between the two. Then we start to compromise. We forget the message that we are supposed to give. The most solemn, sacred message in regards to calling people out of Babylon. We think it's okay. And there we give Satan an advantage. And that's what's happening. And bear in mind, during that apostasy, just before they entered Jordan, it was the leaders that caused the people to err. And it's the same thing today. I don't say this with any joy in my heart. It's the leaders that's going to cause many Adventists today to lose their souls. Why? Because the people will not come no higher than the leaders. They look at them as they are God. They trust them, unfortunately enough. They are leading them to err. And we need to wake up and protest and say this is wrong, obviously in love. But we can't sit there quiet thinking it's okay. And Mrs. White, when she talks about this apostasy that took place just before they entered Jordan with Balaam and Balak, she said it's going to be repeated today. Nothing new under the sun. And we are at the borders of heavenly Canaan. We know the time is nigh. So Satan is bringing these deceptions to come in the church. The women, the compromise, that we may lose sight upon God. And before we find it, we find ourselves lost. That's how dangerous it is. We are told, the Lord is testing his people to see who will be loyal to the principles of his truth. Our work is to proclaim to the world the first, second, and third angels' messages. In the discharge of our duties, we are neither to despise nor to fear our enemies, to bind ourselves up by contracts. And what's a contract? It's agreements, covenants, arrangements, engagements, and deals. We are not to do that. But the church is doing that. Recently, there was a merger with a Catholic hospital where the Catholic is now head of an Adventist hospital. Mergers and contracts, losing our peculiarity through this unlawful union. We are not to bind ourselves up in contracts with those not of our faith, is not in the order of God. We are to treat with kindness and courtesy those who refuse to be loyal to God. But we are to what? Never unite with them. There you have it. We treat them with love. We be kind. We may go out to dinner with them from time to time if we see it's an opportunity to share. But when it comes to worship, knowing that they are in apostasy, we are never to unite. And many people get it twisted. They think when you talk about what they are doing is wrong, they say you have hate, just like Guadalupe was saying in his article, you have no love. But that's not the truth. Now let me make it clear. I came from a Catholic family. All my family is still Catholic. Does it mean I hate them? No. I have a great relationship with my family. I'll go out to dinner with them. I love to be with them. They're my mum, that's my father, there's my brothers and my sisters. But never would I join them in the worship ceremony to the Catholic God, whether they're doing their baptisms, confirmations, or whatever. You would not, by the grace of God, catch me within that vicinity. Why? Because it's pagan. My first loyalty is to God. And they know that. And I'll say, no, I'm not going to your church because it's not Christian, it's pagan. I'm not going to compromise the Sabbath to do what you guys want to do. I'm going to go to church or worship my Lord, you know? So I would not unite with them. I would not compromise my values for them. It doesn't mean I don't love them. I'm doing that because I love them. I want to save them. I want them to come into the truth. But I cannot do that by joining them in their worship services. Why? Because by me doing that, I'm saying it's okay. I'm no longer protesting. There's a compromise. And that can't happen. It means I'm being disloyal to my Lord. We are told, those who engage in the solemn work of bearing the third angel's message must move out decidedly and in the spirit and power of God fearlessly preach the truth and let it cut. Hear that? Preach the truth and let it cut. Just like Jesus did. Just like John the Baptist did. Just like Elijah did. Preach the truth and let it cut. You are in apostasy. What you are doing is an abomination. It's paganism. And if you don't repent, you're going to be lost. Preach the truth. There is as great a difference in our faith and that of the nominal Adventists as the heavens are higher than the earth. Their ministers have preached smooth things. God's servants who bear sacred vital truths should cry aloud and spare not, that the truth may tear off the garment of security and find its way to the heart. We are to preach the truth and let it cut. Again, the leaders of the Sunday movement may advocate reforms which the people need, principles that are in harmony with the Bible. You know, Satan has to give a little bit of truth, you know, to get you in. Oh, this climate change, oh, it's so bad. The world is, you know, falling apart. We need to come together and do something, you know. We need to look after our planet. It sounds good, right? The leaders of the Sunday movement may advocate reform which the people need, principles which are in harmony with the Bible. Yet while there is with these a requirement which is contrary to God's law, his servants cannot unite with them. Nothing can justify them in setting aside the commandments of God for the precepts of man. And that's what the Catholic Church has done. It has set aside the commandments of God for the precepts of man. And they are bold in this. It's all in their literature. They will tell you, we changed the day of worship to Sunday. Why? Because the Pope is God on earth. We are above the Bible. We can have idols in our churches. Yes, it's paganism. It's an honour for the sun god. The Catholic Church is clear that they are above the Bible. They say that they are God on earth. And the fact that they are bold in this and they haven't repented of this publicly tells us that they are an enemy of God. And we are joining hands with the enemy. My goodness, I don't think we realise how we are breaking our Lord's heart by doing this. This is an abomination. And no longer should we keep quiet about this, but tell our leaders in love that what they are doing is wrong. Because if we keep quiet regarding what's going on, the same judgments that fall upon the Catholic Church and the leaders who are in apostasy will also fall upon us. Why? Because we are told, if God abhors one sin above another of which his people are guilty, it is doing nothing in case of an emergency. Indifference and neutrality in a religious crisis is regarded of God as a grievous crime and equal to the very worst types of hostility against God. That's Laodicea. So we are just as bad as the Catholic Church and the leaders if we keep quiet. Because Ezekiel tells us, if we see the sword coming, Ezekiel prophesying through the Spirit of the Lord, if we see the sword coming and we keep quiet, the Lord's blood, the Lord will require our blood at their hands. It's serious. So we have a warning, a severe warning to give to the world. And at this time, we should be praying and fasting for the Lord to help us. Because any moment now, that crisis is going to come upon us. Many people's lives are in our hands. I don't think we realise the depths of the work we have to do. People's lives are in our hands. And if we are keeping quiet, we are not helping. We have to preach the truth and let it cut. And those who are genuine, they will come out. There are many in those churches who are ignorant, that don't know any better. So we have a work to do to give them the message. Through the Bible, the Bible is so clear and simple in telling us these things. We have to give them the message. The fearful message, the third angel's message. Come out of Babylon. Be not partakers of her sins, because she is soon to be destroyed. And if we don't come out and be separate and claim the promises of God, trusting that he can make us righteous, that he will give us a new heart, that we are obedient to all his commandments. If we don't claim that promise and teach others to do so, we will also be lost. I pray that you may go back and look at these things if this is new to you. And God willing, you will see me in the next video. Take care and God bless.